NASCAR goes zero emissions. Kaulig finally wins the appeal, and Kevin Harvick wants more horsepower. Let's talk about it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, let's jump right into it. Kevin Harvick wants more horsepower. Let's look at what he tweeted here. Bob Pockers tweeted, Jeff Andrews, president of Hendrick, said any changes for 2024 need to be made now because their parts supply chain would need to start production planning now to increase the availability. And Harvick said, 1,000 horsepower spec motor, order it. So there you go. Harvick not only just calling for more horsepower just to call for more horsepower, but after the race at Martinsville, where we saw a lot of guys have a really difficult time making passes, more horsepower obviously would be in the driver's benefit because it would help things like when the driver in front of you misses a corner, he can't just shift and mat the throttle, because with that much horsepower, you couldn't just mat the throttle. So it would actually give advantage to the guys that actually make the corner instead of, being able to use the shifter and getting yourself out of that predicament. It would make it harder. You could still shift, but it would still make it harder. They would bring more driving element into it. It would also help with tire fall off. It would help the tires wear out faster, where we saw you had to have really long runs in the Martinsville race for the tires to fall off. With more horsepower, those tires would wear out faster if you're not really sensitive with the throttle. Hence, once again, throttle control would be brought back into it. Per Bob Pockers, Kaulig got its points back on its final appeal of the Phoenix penalties. NASCAR requested that change be made during the hearing, so the penalty is now the same as the Hendrick team's $100,000 fine and 4-race crew chief suspension, but the points are all back for the number 31 of Justin Haley. Statement from the final appeals officer Bill Mullis. In the interest of fairness, NASCAR has requested that I remove the driver and owner race playoff points from the penalty to Kaulig Racing. I have agreed to this request per rulebook. During its opening remarks, NASCAR stated it believes that the violations did occur, the penalties were appropriate, and the 3-person appeals panel ruled correctly. But because the Kaulig infraction closely mirrored that of the Hendrick Motorsports modified louver at Phoenix Raceway, NASCAR requested I rule in the same manner as the 3-person appeals panel following the Hendrick Motorsports appeal on March 29th. The information I heard in the room this morning created an overwhelming and unique circumstance. In fairness to the team and sanctioning body, as NASCAR documented in its remarks, this request is fully and in the interest of fairness and consistency. I agree. So there you go. That almost mirrors exactly what I said when the ruling against Kaulig originally happened. I said NASCAR should come out and make a statement like this, and they basically have said exactly what I was thinking that day, that, hey, look, we think that the appeals panel in the Hendrick case got it wrong. We think the appeals panel in the Kaulig deal got it wrong. But in the interest of fairness, because Hendrick got ruled that way, we should rule Kaulig the exact same way in the interest of fairness. And you know who else thinks that? Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski tweeted out this. This feels about right. Appreciate the candor. So there you go. I think everybody, for the most part, will agree to that. I know the Hendrick fans are still going to think that they didn't do anything wrong, but that's part of being a fan, right? So it is what it is. All right. There was another story, big news story today, that NASCAR is going zero emissions, and people got up in arms about it. So let's take a look at that. NASCAR Cup Series from NASCAR.com staff report. On Earth Week, NASCAR commits to net zero operating emissions by 2035. So before I even jump into this does not mean that NASCAR is going to be racing electric cars. I'll say it one more time. This does not mean that NASCAR is going to be racing electric cars. All right, now let's jump into the actual article. When NASCAR announced its first long-term carbon emissions goal on Tuesday as part of a robust new impact platform, the move signaled the beginning of a new era in sustainability for America's top motorsport. Then the article would go on to say, it's an ambitious goal, but one that holds us accountable as we begin to think about sustainability differently, says Eric Nyquist, NASCAR's Chief Communications and Impact Officer. There is much more work to be done, but the fundamental objective is clear. We must reduce our emissions over time. The commitment to achieving net zero operating emissions over the next 12 years followed NASCAR's first comprehensive measurement of its carbon footprint. The study measured total emissions from all NASCAR offices, owned racetracks, National Series races, and other related operations. This begins the next phase of our sustainability effort, said Riley Nelson, NASCAR's head of sustainability. Measuring our carbon footprint will become an annual process as we improve year over year. With the support of the industry, we'll identify new ways to contribute to a cleaner and healthier environment. In addition to the long-term operating emissions goal, NASCAR carbon measurement informed Near-term sustainability priorities include 100% renewable electricity at owned racetracks and facilities, and the development of a sustainable racing fuel, expanded recycling efforts, and on-site EV charging stations. So there you go. That last part is actually what I want to point you to. Sustainable racing fuel. Fuel, meaning it will be an internal combustion engine at least up through 2035 and beyond. So it's going to be some type of engine in the car. Even if it goes to hybrid, there will be an engine. The sound will still be there because electric motors don't run on fuel, right? So we know from that it is going to be an internal combustion engine, and it is probably going to be some synthetic fuel that doesn't give off any emissions. The other part of that, where they're talking about going to net carbon zero with, is just all the facilities. They're going to have a zero carbon footprint or aim for a zero carbon footprint. That is literally all the story is about. They're just trying to have a cleaner and greener office experience, a cleaner and greener track experience and things like that. But because of the way this came out and fans immediately jumped to, oh, they're going to electric cars. They're not going to electric cars. That's not what this article was about. But a lot of people on social media basically lost it thinking NASCAR was going to electric cars. Not at all what this is about. I've said it like 3 or 4 times now. They're not going to electric cars. Adam Stern reporting Leidos is partnering with NASCAR to promote new rover terrain vehicles that it wants NASA and NASA Artemis to select to help with the exploration of the moon. So there you go. Who knew that NASCAR and NASA would coincide and, become, partners or anything like that, but that's going to be pretty cool. I wonder what that's going to look like going forward, if it's just going to be an exhibit at the track or something like that. But either way, I was a big space nerd when I was a kid, so I like NASA, I like NASCAR. So pretty cool development. And finally, just to round things up here from Mike Joy, Nigu on the number 7 Sunday, Never Ever Give Up. It was founded by Jessie Rees, who started giving jars filled with toys to kids fighting cancer. Jessie went to heaven 11 years ago at the age of 12, but her foundation has given almost 500,000 jars around the world to kids fighting cancer. So there you go. Good enough for me. I think we should all be pulling for that number 7 to have a good race on Sunday. All right, that is all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, feel free to subscribe down below. All your subscriptions mean a lot to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, I appreciate you guys a whole lot. If you got a question or comment or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section. I try to get to as many of them as I can. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace. Live stream tonight at some time, at some point. I just don't know what time I'm going to get home.